You cannot be apolitical when discussing MLMs. Or rather, you can be, but the value of the conversation drops way down. Hello lovely people, my name is Emma. Welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been before, this is MLM content. I do suggest, actually, if you haven't been here before, that maybe you check out the celebrity MLM video that I did, because I mention several US presidents in there, which is pertinent to this whole discussion. So once again, I am jumping in with a video that I didn't intend to make because the whole world revolves around the US presidential election right now. So where I am in time right now, Biden has just been announced president-elect. Trump has just accidentally held a press conference at a garden centre car park. That's where we are right now. I feel the need to make this a talking point because across the anti-MLM groups and forums and things that I am a part of, I am seeing a common message. I'm seeing two common messages. One is, yes, MLM is political, and then the flip side, no political discussions allowed. I've seen that in a couple of the largest groups, which is worrying and upsetting to me. Now, the rational part of me accepts that probably moderating a group full of huge amounts of people at election time in the US is like a crazy task that you're doing for free, and it is probably much easier to just strike a firm no politics rule. I have issues with the no politics rules in general, firstly because I see it a lot in groups about media, you know, like film and TV and things, and you cannot make anything without the context of the world we live in. Everything is inherently political, especially Star Trek. Every time I see somebody say Star Trek isn't political, I want to tear my own hair out. It's all politics, I'll fight you. There's a thin line between politics and just who we are and how we exist in the world. It's widely accepted now that identities, people's gender identities, people's sexualities, those things aren't political, but it's hard to have a discussion around them without political context, because how you are allowed to live freely is dictated by politics, it's dictated by laws and governments. It's very difficult to have a firm line between what is and isn't politics. So I loosely stand against writing politics out of any discussion anyway, but in terms of MLM, I think it's just impossible to be properly engaged as an anti-multi-level marketing person without allowing that discussion, without absorbing the political side of things, because, as I said earlier, it is politics that decides law. It is government that mandates what is and isn't allowed. It is particularly in the US, the government which has allowed multi-level marketing schemes to prosper. It's not all going to be my waffly opinion on Facebook groups. I'm going to go into some proper examples on how politics and MLM are like this, and you can't separate them right now after I have this sip of coffee. So as I said in my celebrities in MLM video, which again I do recommend you watch at least the tiny part of it where I talk about US presidents. It's probably like a minute or two, that one bit, because yeah, I had a whole list of US presidents who have endorsed, among others, Amway. President Reagan famously spoke at a big Amway rally. They loosely changed the name and made it seem less Amway in order to make it more acceptable, but it was an Amway event. It was mostly Amway employees. It was recorded to give that material to Amway employees, and Amway paid for it. So it was an Amway event that Reagan spoke at. All my sources will be in the description as always. I'm going to put a link to a website called Goods Unite US, which is a really interesting website. If you're a US citizen, you can look at that and see what percentage of donations the company itself / employees of the company have donated to political parties. And if you look at Amway on Goods Unite US, you can see that 99% of donations by senior employees were to the Republican Party. Historically, they have always supported the Republican Party. Lots of MLMs have. They have largely supported the Republican Party. This is why MLM companies were openly super thrilled about the Trump administration. If you go back 4 years, they were super stoked publicly because the Trump administration was going to be a brilliant thing for MLMs. It was going to be a real boom in business. You can't take that out of the discussion when you're talking about MLMs. That's integral. MLM companies are now talking about how the Biden administration and the potential change in taxes is going to negatively affect their business. There is a huge link between MLM being pro-Republican and anti-Democrat. That's not to say that you can't have vice versa. There are plenty of Democrats in MLMs, there are plenty of Republicans who are anti-MLM. It's not that you can't be a Republican and be anti-MLM. It's not that at all. It's just that you have to be open to the discussion. You have to be willing to listen and accept the fact that there are aspects and people within the Republican Party that have and currently do push pro-MLM stuff. They make MLMs more accessible. They want MLMs to succeed because they have a stake in them. And whether you support them for other reasons or not, you can't write that out of the discussion because it doesn't suit your political leanings. If that's not enough, I'll explain some current links. We have Betsy DeVos, who is the Education Secretary in the United States right now. If you're anti-MLM, the name DeVos probably sounds familiar to you. Betsy DeVos's husband's family founded and own Amway. Dick DeVos, her husband, is the heir to Amway. Generally, I'm not one to blame a person for something that somebody around them has done. I think that's an unfair way to hold a discussion. But I believe she is involved enough to warrant the discussion, because you can see, if you have a look at the Forbes article that I've linked down below, you can see that Betsy and her husband, Dick DeVos, earned at least $56 million in 2019. And the largest reported source of income came from Alticor, which is the parent company of Amway, the company that Dick DeVos's father co-founded. Betsy and Dick earned at least $20 million in dividends from Alticor last year. It is frankly ignorant to think that members of the government getting huge amounts of money sourced from MLM is not going to have an impact on whether we push back against MLMs or endorse them. James Miles, who presumably nobody has heard of because he was strangely a hard man to Google, he was the Trump administration's choice to run the Open Technology Fund, which I believe is not a government entity, but it was federally backed, so the government put him in place. He's been involved in He's been involved in two multi-level marketing schemes, one of which was shut down by the FTC for allegedly being an illegal pyramid scheme. Miles publicly vouched for the second company, Excel Communications, while he was a top South Carolina official and his wife was being paid by the firm. There have always been members of the US government who are participating in MLM or benefiting from it. When members of the government are benefiting from MLMs, it's going to be harder to push back against MLMs. That's just plain logic. And then, of course, President Trump himself, as again I discussed in that other video, he has publicly endorsed Amway. They all love Amway. It's got to be because of the Republican Party donations, right? They love Amway. He was a pitch man for ACN. Do you remember ACN? That was the phone thing, the video phone thing, you remember?
ACN uses a model with a proven track record, and it's creating millionaires.
And of course, he started his own MLM, or rather, he tried to start his own MLM, the Trump Network, which failed and never went anywhere. But very clearly, he is a big pro-MLM person. Even if you support him, you can't pretend he's not pro-MLM. If you're pro-Trump and anti-MLM, you can't just wipe away that part of the discussion. This is not by any means to say that if you support the Republican Party, you cannot be anti-MLM or you're not allowed in the discussion. That's ridiculous. The point is just that you have to acknowledge the flaws. This is a point of discussion that it is incredibly important we don't lose. We can't filter out the political aspect of MLMs because that is what keeps them in control. That is what gives them the hold. That is what allows them to prosper in a country. If you remove all politics and politically leaning conversations from the anti-MLM discussion, all you're left with is making fun of the people who are the victims of the system. I do, of course, maintain there is enormous value in public awareness, in educating our friends and loved ones. The more people that we can get to say, I'm sorry, I don't support that, so I won't give any money to the company, the more public backlash we can generate to get companies to improve their rules, to improve their contracts, to reduce the number of dangerous and harmful things that they do, the better. That is, of course, incredibly important, and that's why we make YouTube videos. But there will always be victims. There will always be vulnerable people who are susceptible to these schemes. The ultimate goal, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as many people that I speak to in the community are concerned, is about eliminating the business model. It's a pyramid-shaped business model that does the most harm, and the only way to properly combat that is through changing policy, through appealing to the government to say that this isn't right. And we can't do that by avoiding political discussion. I hope this makes sense. I hope this wasn't too rambly. I have just recorded another MLM video. I actually watched a Beachbody team call, which I have never seen before. It's just these, you know, whatever Diamond Ambassador and talking to her coaches. I've like blurred out the faces and I'm just listening to what they say, and I think it's really interesting. That will be going out next week, and then I swear I am going to start my debunking conspiracy theories series, starting with COVID-19. It wasn't caused by 5G. There's a little spoiler for you. So look out for those. Yes, Beachbody team call next week, and then I swear, unless something else comes up, which is quite likely, things just keep popping up and then I have to quickly make a video and it pushes all my plans out of the way. But yeah, I've seen the no politics allowed posts and announcements and people being banned and muted left, right and centre, and frankly it doesn't make sense to me. I understand where it's coming from a personal perspective, in that, you know, it probably makes life very difficult, and seeing things devolve into arguments is probably really tiring, but I don't believe personally you can really truly be anti-MLM and apolitical. I don't think it works. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found this interesting. As always, links to everything, all the sources, everything that I mentioned and discussed, it's in the description below, so you can fact check me there. Remember to subscribe if you found this interesting, because something like 85% of my views come from non-subscribers, so if you fancy sticking around for more things, then you could maybe do that. That would be great. I think today I'm only like 20 away from 666, and then that was my last like goal. I'll have to set a new goal. I'll be so happy with my 666, I really will. If you enjoy hearing me waffle and you would like to see more of me in a very relaxed, cool setting, I do have a gaming channel at Little Duck Gaming, that will be linked down below. We're playing spooky things like Amnesia, silly stuff like Scooby-Doo. It's a mix, so check that out if you are interested. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you very soon.